Well, we're here at Cincy AI Week with John Tyler Rupert. Thank you for joining us, and I want to ask you to share a little bit about you and your company.
Yeah, so my name's Tyler Rupert. So my company's here consulting. We do integrated strategic advising and technical execution. In short, what that means is we can come in and provide some advising consulting on the business and technical strategy side. So whether it's looking at with an early stage startup, market analysis or competitive analysis, to then looking at how the product needs to be positioned. But from there, I'm a software engineer by trade. I can go straight into actually building. Typically, it would be something like a prototype or proof of concept to get early user feedback, demonstrate the value to investors or partners, or get to the next feature or next phase of development. We can do the same thing with small and medium businesses focused on business process automation. This allows us to do pilot tests, so a smaller scale integration tests to make sure that whatever solution we're scoping out is something that's actually going to be effective, not just on paper, but for the people in the organization.
Okay. So what inspires you to do what you do?
It's been a real journey. So it's tricky, Dag. I don't have an answer off the top of my head for that one. I think for a while now, since 2016, I actually had this epiphany of sorts when I was going to Ohio University. Realized I really didn't know where I wanted to go in my life and decided to transfer to Wright State. I majored in computer science. And I just dove deep that summer into what I could do with my life, where I could go. And I fell in love in kind of equal parts with both business, entrepreneurship, and technology. So for one, what inspires me is the value that could bring those skill sets together, could bring to businesses and people, but particularly the generative AI and a lot of the concerns around kind of what this means for all of us and how it's going to impact the world. Being able to help introduce it in companies in a way that really embodies that human AI teaming, where it introduces confidence and consistency and stability rather than, kind of what it seems to be the bigger concerns are now, right? Rather than just shaking things up, or particularly for those who might be impacted, might lose their jobs or have less work available because of it, and trying to find ways to empower those people through the tooling that generative AI can offer.
Okay. When did you first come across AI? What was your initial reaction?
So funny enough, I was just starting to do a little bit of freelancing kind of work on the side. I was working at AWS at the time, and a friend of mine asked me to write him a script that he could put a list of YouTube videos in, and it would download the audio for all. He did some hobby music production stuff. So I just spent, I think, the previous weekend running through all of that, and I got it over to him. And he texted me the next day. He said, "Hey, have you seen this ChatGPT thing? It looks like it can code." But yeah, they always say that, and I dismissed it pretty readily. The next day, though, my manager posted a link to it in our team Slack channel. I played around with it. The first thing I asked it to do was that script that I just wrote, and I spent maybe 8 hours or so on it. It wrote it in 30 seconds. I copied, pasted, and it ran it. It worked great. So that was when I was first introduced to it. And to be honest, that would have been November of 22. I think it took me a couple months before it really sunk in what the implications of this were. But I remember there was one day I was standing in my living room realizing my entire career path is going to change. It has changed. We just don't know how yet. Does that answer your question?
Absolutely. Well, share more about how AI and how you're using it to impact your industry.
Well, to be honest with you, I use it pretty much exclusively for everything we do, from those market analyses and competitive, any sort of research. Right now, you can't take it exactly face value, but it's a great starting point to give you the overall idea. We use it there. I've been using it exclusively as a software engineer since September. When I say exclusively, I use a tool that some will be familiar with called Cursor, among many others, but Cursor was the most popular. And it's similar to other development tools we've used for a long time, but it has AI deeply integrated in it. And pretty much all of the code I've written since September has been AI generated. And I've learned a lot of the good and the bad with that. A lot of manual corrections early on, and as I've learned to develop, to use the tools, it's become a lot more, I become a lot more effective, excuse me. But I think maybe the best example of how I use it that way and the real power of it is this morning actually. So I live in Dayton, Ohio. I live in actually Yellow Springs specifically. So it's an hour and a half drive for me to get here. So I pulled up Gemini this time and I did the voice chat. And so the hour and a half drive down here, I spent the first half of it chatting through market analysis and putting together, I had it put together a version of an investor package for one of my clients. Now when I sit down, I can go through and that gives me starting material to actually build it out. The other half, I put the same kind of thing together and workshopped for the other half, I put the same kind of thing together for Seer Consulting itself. And a lot of it including trying to think of the right way to explain all of this here in this interview, where I don't really have much time because we're putting together a number of those pitch decks right now. And I'm also working on an enterprise level application. It's a marketplace application. And also trying to keep the business going forward. We recently had some challenges that we're working to recover from. With all that going on, it's really hard for me to find the time to actually sit down and even just organize my thoughts. So having that sort of tool available really unlocks or unblocks my, and I think as our team's ability to be able to continue moving forward kind of however we can work with it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Now, what are the human elements that AI can't replace?
Well, so I've spent a lot of time thinking about this one. For one, they don't have intent, right? So the way they run, it has to be given a direction or a directive. Now you could feasibly, or you could potentially build a model that could then provide that intent, and so you have these orchestrators or managing agents. But at the end of the day, that also needs to be given intent. And so you walk this all the way out, and whatever that intent is, I think is the human element. I think graphic design's a great example of this one. When we hired a graphic designer to work on our logo, I wasn't really paying them for their Photoshop or Canva skills. If it was just that, I could go use AI to figure it out. I was really bringing them on and working with them to help me figure out, just with what's in my head, these concepts of what Seer is, what it is to me, and what I think it could be to, I guess, the world. How do we take all of that and put that into a logo? I know how to write code. That's not my expertise. And I don't think, I used AI, I guess, to generate logos, and none of them came close to what we got from our designer. And more importantly, I guess, working with the designer, she had a great eye for what we needed, but she also knew the questions to ask me to get the information that she needed. I'm not sure AI will ever be, I want to say ever, I guess I want to be a little careful there, but I'm not sure it'll be good enough to be able to always know what questions to ask. I wouldn't even know how to actually qualify that, to think through what a system to do that be, aside from having a human involved already. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So how do you see the perfect collaboration of the human element with these advanced AI tools?
Well, I think the concept of an AI agent or autonomous agent, I think, makes a lot of sense to communicate mechanically how it works. But I don't know if that's the right way to think about how it fits into our organizations or our lives. I think with everything I've seen so far, a better way to think about it is it's a leverage tool. Like that market research, for example. I have a lot of questions based on my experience and my expertise that I want to have answered in that market research. And the AI doesn't necessarily know what those questions are. Now, for this integrated strategic advising and technical execution approach, this is something it's started to really take shape just over the past few weeks. As soon as that became apparent, I was able to use Gemini's deep research to get what became a 55-page comprehensive report with 150 sources for the market space we're looking to enter. The amount of time that would have taken me, I wouldn't have done it. right? That's not my expertise. It would have taken me weeks probably to get that kind of information together. And even if it's not all perfect, I had that in 15 minutes. Was able to immediately start looking at what are the markets we could look at trying to get into with this? What are those people concerned with? Who are the potential competitors? But I was able to get this in-depth overview that I could start at a high level, drill down, and whether that report would be a deliverable or executed on or not, it gave me a clear space to, for one, organize my thoughts, but two, give me this first pass of broad information in this very large, complex space. I'm sorry, does that answer your question?
It sure does. Well, I want to ask about your personal superhero power. What's the thing you can do that AI will never replace?
Well, I have intent. I can have an intent. Aside from that, I've thought about that question framed against our competitors or potential competitors in the space. I don't know if I've thought about it so much with AI. One thing specifically on the technical side is dealing with the complexity of modern software development. You know, we started with punch cards in like the 50s or 60s or 40s, and it's built up over all these years where it's a very deep and complex space just for writing the code, let alone if you're thinking about how it integrates with the business or its customers and users. And then when you get to hosting it, cloud, how do you want to do all that stuff? That's really hard to try to work with AI on. I think it's essentially a chaotic system, right? Meaning that the small variations in input have a massive change on the output. And what that becomes for us is intuition and experience. I don't know if AI will get to a point that it could really distill that level of complexity down to a process that we could truly depend on. And so I guess that's more of, I think, how humanity differentiates from AI. And I am a human, so I would say maybe that's how I also differentiate from AI.
Well, thank you for taking time at Cincy AI Week to share with us.
Absolutely. Thank you for taking the time to put this together and to do this. I really appreciate it. Thank you.